In my last Jets trade speculation video and trade rumor video, we talked about the possibility of seeing Matthew Perreault shipped to the Pittsburgh Penguins in return for Nick Bjugstad and Jack Johnson. I talked about how I really didn't like that trade in that video and kind of went over why I didn't. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about something a little bit opposite, and a trade that is a little bit unorthodox in its nature and how about he's structured contract-wise and how his term is and everything. But I think that even though there are some questions about his contract, the fact that he will be an RFA at the end, a UFA, at the end of next season, there are questions revolving around Phillip Danault and Montreal's situation with him. Rumors have broken out recently within the last few weeks that Phillip Danault is going to be unhappy playing a third-line role if the Montreal Canadiens designate him to that spot. You see, the Montreal Canadiens had a breakout playoff run with some of their youth players, and now are expecting to have guys like Nick Suzuki and Jesperi Kotkaniemi jump up in the lineup and take spots in the top six, and because of that, Phillip Danault looks to be the odd man out. He doesn't really want to be the odd man out in that situation and is looking possibly to be traded to have a more offensive producing role because he is a good offensive player, and Phillip Danault doesn't want to just be known as a defensive third-line center. So let's talk about the possibility about Winnipeg trading for him. If you don't know who Phillip Danault is a center who's a left-handed shot who plays for the Montreal Canadiens, born February 24th, 1993. He is 6 foot. He is 200 pounds. If the giraffe, the websites are still accurate. Taken in the first round, 26th overall in 2011, and his salary is only $3 million up until the end of next season. So overall, a pretty solid player, and especially for the fact that everything about him, with his cap-wise, his term, and everything, is pretty good considering that he's a top 6 player making $3 million. But let's look at his stats and talk about why I think that Phillip Danault has a lot of offensive potential and could be a really, really beneficial key player for the Winnipeg Jets, and let me explain why. If we go back and take a look at Phillip Danault's first few seasons in the NHL, he was obviously taken by Chicago and spent a few years with the Rockford Ice Hogs, and then playing with Chicago in 2 games in 2014, and then playing with the Chicago again for 30 games back in 2015. And he didn't play very well, to say the least. You know, in his first 2 games, he didn't put up any points, didn't take up any penalties, just invisible on the ice. In his other games, in his 30 games with Chicago in 2015-2016, he had a goal and 4 assists for 5 points, and overall was a -3, so nothing really special. But then he gets traded to Montreal, and we start to see his points and totals increase. In his first year in Montreal, he only has 8 points in 21 games, an improvement off of the 6 points he had last season. 5 points he had last season, but still, nonetheless. But then you get into the 2016-2017 season with Phillip Danault. He goes up to 13 goals, 27 assists for 40 points. You go to his next season in 2017 and 18, he puts up 8 goals, 17 assists for 25 points. A decline, but still good offensive production, and good defensive year as well for him. And then you look at the year after that. 12 goals, 41 assists, 53 points. And then going into the season, 71 games, 13 goals, 34 assists, 47 points in less games. So who knows if COVID didn't happen, what Phillip Danault would have looked like and what his season could have been. So is there offensive potential here? Absolutely. And the thing to look at also, as Montreal fans will definitely know if you're a fan of Phillip Danault, he's never really played with the most offensively skilled players on the teams at some times. He's been a big defensive guy. He's on the PK a lot. He's very trusted in lots of different roles on the team. And that's great because you want a guy on your team that can be skillful offensively but can still bring offensive bonuses and stuff that benefits your lines and your team to help progress you. Because let's be honest, as though the defense is important, goals win games, and that's what really comes down to, is the ability to score. If you can play the best defense of your life but you can't score and can't put up any assists, you're not going to be in the NHL. So getting into looking at his stats, do I think that Phillip Danault, if he was to be traded to a team with more offensive talent, like the Winnipeg Jets, for example, and was given time to play on the second power play, or even to play as a second-line center, I think he could be very, very good, and he'd easily be a 60-point guy. I really think that. I think that would be very possible. I think if you put Phillip Danault with Nikolai Ehlers, Kyle Connor, Blake Wheeler, any of those guys, I think he can get 60 points. And I think that would be huge for the Winnipeg Jets. But the only problem is he's on a 1-year deal going into next season. So, Jets fans, let's think about it, and let's really get down to the nitty-gritty of this video. Do we want to see Kevin Sheldayoff trade assets for a guy expiring at the end of the season, and we will have to re-sign? Because we know how well we've had in the past with trading for players on expiring deals and not being able to keep them and keep the chemistry going, aka Paul Stastny. And to an extent, I would say Kevin Hayes, but he wasn't as good as Paul Stastny. But the point is that Kevin Hayes was still a legit second-line center who we couldn't afford to keep. So that brings up a lot of issues. Phillip Danault will be affordable for this year and will be really good for this year if we were to go out and sign a lot of free agents and defense and spend money because he's on a 3-year deal. Only problem with that is that what do we do after he's off that deal? And that's where the real issues come into with this trade. And that's where I've seen a lot of people be like, oh, yeah, I think he's a great player for the Jets to trade for, but I don't think we will be able to really go out and get him for something that is worth it because most likely we'd be giving up a first for a guy who would be possibly leaving at the end of the season. And that's something that we can't risk as a Jets team because we still are trying to be a good competing team. This year we were not a competing team that was competitive at all, and next year we're trying to be. So we can't keep giving up young assets to go out and lose them and just have mediocre seasons. So I understand where Jets fans are coming from in that sense, and I understand on the other side about how Montreal feels about it because some Montreal fans don't really want to trade Phillip Danault. They want to keep him as their third line center, obviously because he's skilled, and they want to ride him out for the year and then let him go in free agency. And a lot of Montreal fans are saying that he should just suck it up, play the year, and then go out and get his money in free agency. Only problem with that is if you're Phillip Danault, you're going to be playing on the third line of Montreal and not getting 47 points and not getting 53 points. So because of that, he's obviously going to not get as big of a pay increase as he would want in free agency, and that's going to affect his morale and decisions to stay with the team. So, do I think that he gets traded? Absolutely. I don't think he'll want to stay, and especially if Montreal isn't good next year, he's on an expiring deal and is easily worth a first at the trade deadline. So either way, Phillip Danault will be gone and will not be with the Montreal Canadiens unless they sign him to an extension or they work something out. But in that sense, in my opinion, I would believe that unless he is traded before or at the deadline, he will be gone eventually at some point in the future within the next year for the Canadiens. But do I think he's a good acquisition for the Jets? I do. And let me explain why, Jets fans. If you look at Phillip Danault's stats right now and the way he plays the game, his defensive style, and how well he would slot into our top six with our already signed wingers and core, I think that usually I am against signing players without having to see them play games on your roster without an extension. And what I mean by that is that, for an example, Brendan Sutter, when originally was traded to the Vancouver Canucks for Nick Bonino all the way back when, and immediately when that trade was signed, he was given a massive extension. Now, it wasn't huge, but it was still a pretty big expansion for a guy who had never been played for the team yet, had any chemistry or nothing. And I've always thought that that wasn't a good move. And it showed kind of with Brendan Sutter for a couple of years with the injuries and stuff, but now it's worked out. Point being, I have that fear about signing guys without having them play with the team. But the thing that's beautiful about this is that if you trade for Phillip Danault, and then you see him play with a little bit for the next start of next season, sign him to an extension early because you'll be able to, and you'll be able to see him play. If he likes Winnipeg, and if the guy's got 20 goals before the frickin' trade deadline, I think he'll want to stay with Winnipeg. So I think there is a good chance a guy like Phillip Danault would slot in beautifully with Winnipeg and would want to stay. So because of that, because of his game, and because of how he plays hockey and what type of hockey player he is, I think that in this situation, a team like Winnipeg trading for him could be very beneficial to Montreal because they would be able to get assets for a guy who they, obviously are trying to keep, but at least they get assets for him because Winnipeg would probably have to pay top dollar, assuming any team would have to pay top dollar. And the other big issue would be that you would have to really look at what he is worth, because if you were a Jets fan right now, a lot of people would be up in arms, and basically going down Portage in Maine with pitchforks going after into the MTS Center, going after Cheveldayoff if they traded a first-round pick for a guy that had 47 points. I can understand the anger. Now that seems like, why would you get angry at trading a first for that? But Phillip Danault, to a lot of players, is just, a depth guy who gets offensive points and plays on a bad Montreal team. I don't see him as that, but some do. So I say to them, those people in this video, look at his stats, watch some highlights, watch his defensive play. In a way, although he is 27 years old, signing a guy to a 4-year contract extension could be very beneficial, or even 3-year contract extension. He's not too old, he's getting better, he's a late bloomer, and on top of all of that, he's just a very solid player who fits that role of hockey Winnipeg desperately needs. I feel that Phillip Danault could have a great chemistry with some legit top 6 wingers, especially with the top 6 wingers that Winnipeg has, and could easily become a 60-point guy on the Winnipeg Jets. Look at the 2018-19 season. In 81 games, he had 53 points. That's not far off from 60. Imagine what he could be fully healthy in a full season with the type of offensive talent and the type of positions that he would be needing to play with. Power play, they're needing that. We need guys in the second power play. We need things like that. He would have so much opportunity to score and to be better that I feel like it would be such a good fit for the Jets to go out and get him. Originally, I was a lot more higher on Max Domi. I was actually going to be making this video on Max Domi and why I wanted the Jets to trade for him. But my mind has kind of changed because, yeah, Max Domi is a good player, but Phillip Danault just fits that role way better and also will be way cheaper. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if Phillip Danault went up maybe only $2 million to a $5 million deal. 5 by 3, 5 by 4, something like that. Maybe is what he gets in free agency. I'm completely okay giving Phillip Danault that type of contract. If you look at Phillip Danault's numbers, he's putting up better numbers than not Matthew Perreault, than Brian Little is, and playing almost way more games than him. And I love Brian Little, but the point being is that I would much rather be paying Brian Little's money to Phillip Danault right now, and I'm okay with doing that if that's what the Jets have to do. And other people should be as well. You're not going to be going out and getting the most elite player to play the second line. You need a guy who knows what his role is and passes the puck and dishes it, and is a good playmaking player who plays in the boards, and is a good defensive guy too, because the Jets don't have a lot of good defensive forwards, and they need that. So Phillip Danault to the Jets, an amazing, amazing speculation, and I really hope that it comes true, because I really could see a good chemistry being built with Winnipeg and Phillip Danault, and also I think that it would be really good to go out and get a guy like his caliber, because I think he's got so much potential. Let me know your thoughts on this trade and then on this speculation, and what your thoughts are on Phillip Danault, both sides of it. Montreal, let me know your thoughts on Phillip Danault and the whole situation. Do you want to see him get traded? Do you want to see, him stay and go for one more year of having really good center depth? What are your thoughts? Jets fans, what are your thoughts? Let me know if you think that Phillip Danault is a good fit for Winnipeg, if you would rather just go out and see Domi, if you would rather go out and get secondary options. In my last video, I talked about Bjugstad. I see Phillip Danault as a complete upgrade. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching the video. If you're brand new to the channel, definitely consider dropping a subscription. We are on the road to 150 subs, and it would mean the world to have you on that support and on that journey with me. So thank you so much for all the support. And as always, guys, peace out, take care, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.